The sun hung low over the endless dunes of HFY, painting the sand in deep shades of gold and orange. The wind whispered across the desert, carrying grains that shimmered like tiny stars. In the distance, a shadow broke the monotony of the sands. Kieran, the lone human mechanic, trudged carefully over the shifting dunes, each step sinking slightly, leaving a trail behind him. His clothes were dusty. The visor of his helmet reflected the burning horizon. HFY was a dead world in most eyes. Once it had been a thriving hub of interstellar trade, but over centuries, alien civilizations had come and gone, leaving ruins and relics scattered across the deserts. Kieran had been alone for months, scavenging for parts to repair his damaged ship. Supplies were scarce, and the planet offered little more than sand, rocks, and the occasional metallic fragment buried beneath the dunes. But Kieran was not discouraged. Unlike the aliens who had once ruled this system, humans had a stubborn ingenuity. Kieran had learned to survive with little, to turn scraps into tools, and to find hope where others saw only emptiness. His eyes, sharp and careful, scanned the horizon. Something beneath the sand caught his attention. A line, perfectly straight, too precise to be natural. He approached it cautiously, brushing away the fine, hot sand with gloved hands. Slowly, a metallic edge emerged. Kieran's heart beat faster. It was a structure unlike any he had seen before, massive and ancient. He could barely estimate its size, but the exposed section was smooth, polished, and etched with symbols that glowed faintly in the dying sunlight. Finally, he whispered to himself. Humans thrived on challenges, and this was unlike any he had faced. Most people would see a half-buried relic and walk away. Kieran, however, felt the thrill of possibility. Whoever had built this machine had left it unfinished, or perhaps they had left it waiting for someone like him. He set down his pack and removed a small scanning device from his belt. The device emitted a low hum as it swept over the metal surface. The readings were incredible, energy signatures faint but unmistakably active, as if the machine was breathing, waiting, dreaming beneath the desert. Kieran knelt and ran a gloved finger over the symbols. They were alien in design, flowing like liquid, yet oddly familiar. For hours, he examined the edge of the structure, taking careful notes, sketching the strange glyphs, and testing the surrounding sand for unusual vibrations. Every now and then, the desert itself seemed to shift beneath him. Small tremors ran through the ground, almost as if the planet was alive. Kieran paused, studying the sand dunes, feeling a connection he could not explain. By nightfall, the temperature had dropped, and the desert stars shone like millions of tiny diamonds scattered across black velvet. Kieran built a small camp, careful not to disturb the relic. He ate a meager ration, the weight of isolation pressing on him, yet his mind buzzed with excitement. He was not merely surviving. He had discovered something extraordinary as the hours passed. Kieran drifted into sleep, his dreams filled with visions of lights and patterns, as if the machine itself were trying to communicate. When he awoke, the first rays of dawn were cutting across the sands, casting long shadows. He felt a pull toward the machine stronger than curiosity. Something inside him told him that this discovery could change everything. He spent the morning clearing more sand from the structure, revealing a smooth panel that seemed like a doorway. It was covered in the same glowing glyphs. Kieran ran his hands over the surface, feeling a faint warmth. He knew instinctively that this panel was more than decoration. It was a control interface. It's built to respond to touch, or perhaps thought. The aliens who built this machine had clearly underestimated humans. Kieran took a deep breath. He had repaired ships, engines, and life support systems, but this was on another level. His fingers moved carefully over the symbols, testing different combinations and patterns. At first, nothing happened. Then, a soft hum resonated from deep within the sand. Kieran froze, eyes wide. The ground beneath him vibrated gently. Like a heartbeat, a small section of the panel glowed brighter as if acknowledging his presence. Kieran's pulse quickened. He had activated something not fully, but enough to prove that the machine was not dead. It was waiting for someone clever enough to unlock it. And for the first time in months, Kieran did not feel alone. He felt purpose. Over the next few days, he worked tirelessly. He built temporary scaffolding to reach higher sections, dug around buried mechanisms, and improvised tools from his limited supplies. Every step was careful, precise. The desert tested him, with shifting sands, sudden storms, and scorching heat. But Kieran pressed on. He was human, and humans were persistent when faced with challenges that others could not solve. Slowly, fragments of the machine came to life under his touch. Lights flickered along alien conduits. Tiny panels opened, revealing intricate mechanisms that seemed impossible to understand. But Kieran did not give up. He studied each system, testing his ideas, learning to speak the machine's silent language. Every day brought small victories. A humming conduit here, a rotating gear there. It was as if the machine recognized his ingenuity, responding to human creativity in ways no alien had imagined. One evening, while resting under the starlit sky, Kieran noticed subtle changes in the desert around him. The dunes had shifted unusually fast, forming patterns that mirrored the machine's glowing symbols. Wind carried strange vibrations, almost like a song across the sands. Kieran realized that his work was not just affecting the machine, it was affecting the planet itself. CosmicAdventures had been waiting, and now it was beginning to awaken, guided by his hands. The realization filled him with awe. He was one human, alone on a distant world, yet he held the key to something far greater than himself. The aliens who had abandoned the planet had overlooked the most important factor: human adaptability, imagination, and daring. Kieran's mind raced with possibilities. The machine could restore the planet, reveal lost knowledge, or even unlock powers the galaxy had never seen. As the days turned into nights, Kieran's connection to the machine deepened. He no longer approached it as a relic of the past, but as a living system, a partner in the work of creation. Every adjustment he made brought subtle responses: a panel sliding open, a soft glow, a vibration in the sand. It was as if the planet itself was learning to trust him. Yet, with discovery came caution. Kieran knew that power this great could attract attention. Other civilizations might sense the awakening of the machine and come for it. But for now, he was alone. The desert stretched endlessly, and the stars above were his only witnesses. He was free to explore, experiment, and unlock the secrets of the half-buried giant beneath the sands as Part 1 closes. Kieran stands on a small ridge overlooking the massive structure, silhouetted against the rising sun. He feels a mixture of fear and excitement, knowing that the next steps he takes could change the fate of an entire world. For the first time in 117 years, this desert planet is alive, and one human mechanic holds the spark that could awaken it completely. The hum of the machine echoes faintly in the wind, a heartbeat waiting for the right touch. And Kieran, with his unshakable curiosity and daring spirit, is ready to give it life. The desert was alive with movement that Kieran alone could sense. Every step he took toward the half-buried machine brought him closer to answers he did not yet fully understand. CosmicAdventures was not merely a world of sand and silence, it was a graveyard of civilizations, each leaving behind relics, messages, and secrets. And buried deep beneath the dunes was a machine older than any memory, waiting for someone clever enough to awaken it. Kieran had spent days uncovering the edges of the alien structure, brushing away centuries of sand and dust. The more he revealed, the more he realized the sheer size of what lay before him. Massive panels, engraved with intricate symbols, stretched across what seemed like hundreds of meters. Conduits and pipes snaked into the depths of the dunes, and hidden vents whispered faint pulses of energy. The machine was a city in itself, built not just to function, but to survive for centuries unattended. With a deep breath, Kieran activated a small power analyzer. Tiny lights flickered along the surface of the machine, responding to the scan. The energy readings were faint, scattered across multiple nodes, but unmistakably alive. This machine was not dead, it was dormant, and it was waiting for a human touch. Kieran knelt to examine one of the smaller panels. Tracing the glowing alien glyphs with his fingers, he could feel a subtle vibration under his palms, as if the machine recognized him, or perhaps tested him. Most alien technology had been designed for precision. But this device seemed to challenge logic, demanding creativity and intuition. Kieran smiled. Humans thrived where others failed, and he intended to prove it. For the next several hours, he worked tirelessly. He patched small breaks in conduits, adjusted misaligned gears, and improvised with scraps from his pack. Each minor success was a small victory, but Kieran knew the real test lay deeper inside the machine. It was one thing to awaken a single panel. It was another to bring an entire system back to life after 117 years of silence. As he worked, Kieran uncovered fragments of alien history hidden within the machine. Holographic projectors flickered to life, showing images of cities long buried in beings that moved with grace and intelligence. The aliens had built Prime as a planetary stabilizer, a machine to regulate ecosystems, control weather, and maintain balance. But centuries of abandonment had left it incomplete, its systems silent. Waiting for a hand that could understand both logic and intuition, Kieran realized the significance of what he held in his hands. This machine was not merely a tool. It was a legacy, a proof that intelligence could endure long after civilizations vanished. And for the first time, he understood why it had remained buried, untouched, and forgotten. No alien species had the patience or creativity to unlock it. Only a human, with ingenuity and daring, could awaken it. The days passed in a blur of effort. Kieran became one with the machine, moving through its panels, learning its rhythm, and listening to the subtle hums that spoke in a language of energy and vibration. Occasionally, small tremors shook the dunes, and Kieran realized the machine was responding to his work in ways he could feel in the soles of his boots. The desert was awakening, along with the giant beneath it. But Kieran was not alone in his discovery. Far beyond the dunes, other eyes watched the desert, sensing the faint surge of power. Alien scavengers from nearby colonies had long learned to detect unusual energy sources. When a system that had been dormant for over a century began to stir, they could not ignore it. They would come, drawn by curiosity, greed, and the hope of harnessing power beyond their understanding. For now, however, Kieran had the desert to himself. He dug deeper into the structure, uncovering hidden access tunnels and chambers filled with machinery. Each discovery was more astonishing than the last, rotating mechanisms that defied his expectations, conduits that glowed with pure energy, and panels that projected holograms of long-lost cities. The machine seemed alive, guiding him, teaching him, challenging him to solve puzzles no other being could. One night, under the vast canopy of stars, Kieran paused to rest. The desert wind carried a strange, almost musical vibration, as if the planet itself were singing in response to the machine. He closed his eyes and listened, feeling a connection he could not fully explain. It was as if the sands, the dunes, and the buried structure shared a single heartbeat, and he had become part of it. He thought about the alien civilizations that had once thrived on Prime. They had been brilliant, advanced beyond measure, yet they had failed to see what a human could do. They had built a machine too complex for their own kind, leaving it dormant and forgotten. Kieran, alone and persistent, was beginning to unlock its potential. By the following morning, he had uncovered a series of control panels arranged like a constellation across the structure. Each panel seemed to correspond to a subsystem: energy regulation, environmental control, and structural stabilization. Kieran examined the symbols and patterns, trying combinations and sequences, careful not to trigger a failure. Slowly, methodically, he began to activate smaller sections. Lights flickered, tiny gears spun, and conduits hummed with energy. The first partial activation brought unexpected changes to the desert. Sand shifted and rose in unusual patterns. Winds swirled with a new rhythm. Kieran realized that the machine's power extended beyond its physical structure, influenced the planet itself. Each system he activated brought subtle signs of life and movement to the barren world as he worked. He noticed that the machine seemed to respond to human logic in a way it had never responded to alien thought. Panels opened when he touched them in precise sequences. Energy flows stabilized when he made intuitive adjustments. Kieran's hands moved with confidence, guided by knowledge, instinct, and creativity. He understood that the machine had been designed to challenge its user, to reward ingenuity, and to reveal its secrets only to one who dared to try. But Kieran also understood the stakes. The machine's dormant power was immense, capable of reshaping the planet or destroying it if misused. One mistake could collapse the entire system or trigger catastrophic reactions. He moved carefully, aware that he carried the fate of CosmicAdventures in his hands. The desert, silent witness to his efforts, seemed to hold its breath. As days turned into weeks, Kieran's work began to yield astonishing results. Hidden chambers opened, revealing energy cores and structural reinforcements. Ancient conduits, long blocked by sand and corrosion, began to channel energy once more. Holographic projections displayed the history of CosmicAdventures and the civilizations that had built it. Kieran watched in awe as the stories of brilliant engineers, architects, and visionaries unfolded before him. He realized that he was not merely restoring a machine, he was reconnecting with a forgotten world. One evening, a particularly strong vibration ran through the dunes. Kieran looked up to see a faint shimmer across the horizon. He knew the machine was testing him, gauging his patience, skill, and determination. It was alive in a way he had never experienced, responding to human ingenuity with subtle acknowledgments. He smiled, understanding that he had become part of its rhythm, its purpose, and its awakening. Kieran's isolation no longer felt like loneliness. The desert, the machine, and the faint stirrings of the planet had become his companions. Every day brought new discoveries, challenges, and small victories. He knew that the full potential of the machine was still far from reach. But he also understood something important. One human, clever, patient, and daring, could achieve what entire civilizations had failed to do. The story of CosmicAdventures was far from over. Beneath the sands, the ancient machine lay ready to respond to the next step. Kieran, with his skill, courage, and human intuition, was prepared to take it. The desert stretched endlessly around him, a sea of gold under the starlit sky. The half-buried giant pulsed with life beneath the dunes, waiting. And one human, alone but undaunted, had begun to unlock its secrets, setting in motion a chain of events that would reshape the world itself. The awakening had begun. The sands whispered promises of wonders yet to come. The desert winds had shifted overnight, carrying an electric tension that Kieran could feel in his bones. The sands seemed to hum with energy, as though the planet itself was whispering secrets to him. For weeks, he had worked tirelessly, uncovering panels, repairing conduits, and deciphering alien glyphs. Every small success brought the machine to life in tiny bursts. But now, Kieran knew he was ready for a greater test, the first. Full activation of a subsystem. He approached the largest control panel he had uncovered so far, its surface gleaming faintly under the rising sun. The symbols were complex, shifting subtly when he ran his fingers across them, responding to his touch. The interface was unlike anything he had ever seen. No alien engineer had left it easy. It demanded intuition, creativity, and daring, the traits of a human mind. Kieran set to work, carefully testing sequences of symbols, making adjustments to the energy conduits, and cross-referencing the machine's patterns with his observations of the planet's subtle reactions. As he progressed, a soft vibration ran through the ground. The desert seemed to acknowledge his touch, reacting to the patterns he entered. Sand shifted gently around him, forming small ripples that mirrored the energy flows beneath. Hours passed, and Kieran felt the thrill of anticipation mingled with caution. The machine was powerful, far beyond anything he had encountered. One misstep could overload its circuits, or worse, trigger a destabilization of the planet's crust. But he had confidence in his human intuition, the ability to adapt, to improvise, and to act where others hesitated. Finally, he completed the sequence. The machine responded immediately. Lights flared along the panels, conduits hummed with energy, and tiny gears turned in harmony. A low-frequency vibration pulsed through the sand, echoing across the desert like a heartbeat. Kieran stepped back, watching as the first subsystem came alive. A holographic projection sprang to life above the panel. Images of the planet's past appeared, cities that had once thrived, forests that had stretched across continents, rivers and lakes that shimmered under alien suns. Kieran could see the history of CosmicAdventures, a world of extraordinary design and intelligence. The machine was showing him what had been lost, and what could be restored. But it was not just history. The machine began to simulate the current state of the planet. Dried riverbeds shimmered with hints of water. Sand dunes shifted to reveal hidden reservoirs, and faint green glows indicated areas where life could be reborn. Kieran realized that this was more than a machine, it was a planetary caretaker, a system designed to restore balance to a world left to decay. As he studied the projection, Kieran felt a new understanding forming. The machine was not just responding to his actions, it was testing him. Each activation required precision, foresight, and creativity. The aliens who had built it had underestimated the potential of a human mind. No other species could unlock its systems in the way Kieran could. His ingenuity was not merely a tool, it was the key. The first activation also brought an unexpected challenge. Deep beneath the dunes, the machine's awakening sent subtle energy pulses across the desert. Kieran could see sand moving unnaturally, forming strange patterns and structures. It was beautiful, yet unpredictable. He realized that the desert itself had become part of the system, a living extension of the machine. Every action he took influenced not only the structure, but also the world around it. Kieran knew that his work had drawn attention. Far above the planet, sensors on alien scouting ships had detected the unusual energy surges. Across the dunes, scavengers and explorers stirred, drawn by curiosity and the promise of power. If they arrived too soon, they could seize the machine before it was fully understood. Kieran's challenge was not only to awaken the machine, but also to protect it until he could master it. The next days were a blur of careful adjustments and calculations. Kieran moved deeper into the structure, discovering hidden chambers filled with energy cores, rotating mechanisms, and conduits that carried immense power. Each chamber tested his skill and patience. Some required precise alignment of energy flows. Others demanded improvisation using tools he had crafted from scraps. Despite the challenges, Kieran made progress. Panels that had lain dormant for 117 years now glowed with steady energy. Conduits thrummed like arteries, carrying life-giving power through the machine. Holograms projected visions of cities rising from the sand, rivers flowing once again, and forests reclaiming deserts. Kieran saw the potential to reshape CosmicAdventures, to bring life back to a world abandoned by its creators. But the machine was not finished testing him. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a sudden surge of energy pulsed through the desert. The ground trembled, sending sand cascading down the dunes. Kieran gritted his teeth, adjusting conduits and rerouting energy flows to stabilize the system. The machine had sensed a flaw in his alignment and was demanding correction. Kieran's hands moved with precision, guided by instinct and experience. He adjusted the energy nodes, recalibrated the conduits, and synchronized the rotating gears. Slowly, the vibrations subsided and the system stabilized. The desert returned to calm, and Kieran realized he had passed the first true test. The machine recognized his skill, and the first spark of its full potential had been ignited. The success brought both triumph and awe. Kieran stood on a ridge overlooking the awakened section of the machine, watching as sand shifted to reveal hidden terraces and structures. The desert seemed to glow with energy, and a faint hum resonated across the dunes. CosmicAdventures was beginning to awaken, responding to human ingenuity in ways no other species could have imagined. Kieran knew this was only the beginning. The first subsystem was operational, but the machine was vast, complex, and far from fully activated. There were still chambers to explore, conduits to repair, and energy nodes to balance. And beyond the dunes, alien scavengers were surely preparing to descend. Drawn by the same energy that had awakened the machine, yet Kieran felt no fear. Humans were capable of ingenuity and courage unmatched by any other species. He had faced isolation, harsh deserts, and challenges that would have defeated others. The machine had chosen him. and he was ready to prove that one human could achieve what entire civilizations had failed to do. That night, Kieran camped near the base of the machine, listening to the hum of energy and the whisper of the desert wind. He reviewed his work, planning the next steps. He would need to stabilize more subsystems, decipher the remaining glyphs, and prepare for the challenges ahead. The desert was no longer empty. It was alive, responsive, and filled with potential. As he drifted to sleep, Kieran felt a deep connection to the planet and the machine. He realized that this was more than a discovery, it was a partnership. The machine was teaching him, guiding him, and recognizing his skill. And CosmicAdventures, silent for over a century, had begun to respond to a single human touch. The first spark had been ignited. Lights flared, gears turned, and the hum of energy carried across the desert like a song. Kieran knew that the path ahead would be difficult, that dangers and challenges awaited. But he also understood something vital. The combination of human ingenuity, courage, and patience could awaken what no other species could touch. In the silence of the desert, Kieran looked toward the horizon. The dunes shifted in response to the machine's pulse. The stars above reflected the faint glow of energy spreading across the sands. CosmicAdventures was waking, and one human mechanic had begun a journey that could change the fate of an entire world. The first spark was more than a light. A promise that humans, with their creativity and daring, could shape the destiny of planets, awaken ancient powers, and achieve feats no one else could imagine. Kieran smiled, ready for the next challenge. The desert, the machine, and the planet itself awaited his next move. And one human, against all odds, was about to show the galaxy what it meant to dare to create, and to awaken giants that had slept for more than a century. Kieran stood at the edge of the central control chamber, eyes fixed on the massive array of panels, conduits, and rotating mechanisms. After weeks of relentless work, months of isolation, and countless calculations, the machine was almost fully awakened. The desert around him had begun to respond in astonishing ways. Sand dunes shifted like living waves, hidden terraces and ruins emerged from beneath centuries of burial, and faint pools of water glimmered under the sunlight. The final panel lay before him, a smooth black surface etched with alien glyphs that pulsed faintly. This was the key to the machine's full power, the planetary core that had remained dormant for 117 years. Kieran knew that activating it would be dangerous. One wrong move could destabilize the system, or worse, disrupt the fragile balance he had worked so hard to create. Yet, deep within him, he felt a surge of confidence. Humans thrived on challenges, on the impossible. And this was no different. He crouched before the panel, placing his hands carefully on the symbols. The glyphs responded instantly, glowing brighter, sending waves of energy through the central chamber. Conduits hummed, gears turned in perfect rhythm, and a low-frequency vibration ran through the desert. Kieran's pulse quickened. He was about to awaken something that had slept for over a century. With deliberate movements, he activated the final sequence. Lights flared across the machine, spreading from the core to every panel, every conduit, and every hidden mechanism. Energy surged through the planet, vibrating beneath the sands, rising into the air, and spreading across the horizon. The desert trembled, dunes shifting and reshaping as if the planet itself were breathing. Kieran stood, awed by the power now flowing through the machine. The energy was immense, yet perfectly balanced. The planetary core had awakened, and with it, CosmicAdventures began to heal. Hidden reservoirs filled with water, rivers carved new paths across the land, and faint traces of greenery began to bloom where once only sand had existed. The machine was fulfilling its purpose. One human had unlocked its potential, far above the desert. Alien scavengers had approached, drawn by the massive energy surge. They looked down upon the awakening machine, their eyes wide with disbelief. They had expected a relic, a tool of old civilizations, but what they saw defied everything they had known. The planet itself was alive, responding to human ingenuity, and no alien force could control it. The scavengers tried to descend, but Kieran was ready. Using the machine's environmental controls, he shifted dunes to create barriers, rerouted energy pulses to misdirect intruders, and activated subtle mechanisms that confused them. The aliens were clever, but they lacked the human ability to adapt, to think creatively in real time, and to understand the subtle language of the machine. Every step they took was anticipated by Kieran's intuitive adjustments. Inside the central chamber, the machine projected holograms of CosmicAdventures as it had once been. Cities rose in ghostly outlines, forests stretched across continents, and rivers flowed with crystal clarity. Kieran saw visions of the planet restored to its full glory, not just as it had been, but enhanced by the harmony of the machine and the human mind. He realized that this was more than restoration. It was creation. Humans had the ability to shape worlds in ways no other species could. As the planetary core reached full activation, the desert trembled violently. Sandstorms erupted, swirling around the rising structures and newly revealed terraces. Kieran held firm, adjusting conduits and energy flows with precision. The machine responded to his human touch, balancing the immense power surging through it. The tremors subsided, leaving a calm, steady hum that echoed across the revived landscape. Water began to flow in hidden channels, feeding the first sprouts of vegetation. Small animals, long dormant or hidden beneath the sands, emerged cautiously, sensing the energy of life returning to their world. Kieran watched with amazement, realizing that the machine was not only mechanical but ecological. It had been built to restore the delicate balance of the planet. And now, guided by human ingenuity, it was succeeding beyond imagination. The alien scavengers, unable to penetrate the defenses and overwhelmed by the machine's sheer power, retreated. They had expected to seize an abandoned relic, but what they faced was far greater: a planet alive, guided by the intuition, courage, and skill of a single human mechanic. No force could challenge what humans could achieve when they dared to act. Where others hesitated, Kieran walked through the central chamber, feeling the vibrations of energy under his boots. He touched panels that now responded instantly to his hands, adjusted conduits with ease, and watched as the machine synchronized perfectly. The desert outside was no longer barren. It was alive, breathing with power, and reshaping itself in harmony with the ancient mechanisms. He paused at a balcony overlooking the awakening landscape. Sand dunes had shifted to reveal hidden terraces. Streams of water glistened in the sunlight. Its faint greenery marked the rebirth of life. The desert winds carried the hum of energy, as if the planet itself were singing in gratitude. Kieran realized that his work was not just technical. It was artistic, creative, and heroic. Humans had a unique ability to bring life, structure, and intelligence into harmony with the universe. As night fell, the stars reflected on pools of water and metallic surfaces of the machine. Kieran rested briefly, reflecting on what he had accomplished. He was alone, yet he felt a connection to the planet, the machine, and the echoes of civilizations long gone. One human had awakened what others could not, demonstrating that courage, creativity, and determination were forces that no alien intelligence could match. In the following days, Kieran refined the system. He calibrated energy flows, balanced environmental controls, and synchronized the planetary core with the machine's outer mechanisms. CosmicAdventures continued to transform. Rivers carved new paths, forests expanded across previously barren dunes, and the desert itself shimmered with renewed life. The machine had fulfilled its purpose, but only because a human had dared to act, think, and persevere. The alien scavengers, though distant now, remained a potential threat. But Kieran knew the truth. No one could master this system like he could. Humans had an adaptability, intuition, and creativity that exceeded the rigid logic of other species. The planet was alive, the machine was humming in perfect harmony, and one human had proven that intelligence, courage, and ingenuity could reshape worlds. Kieran stood once more on the highest ridge, overlooking the transformed desert. The sands glowed faintly under the morning sun. Rivers sparkled as they wound through the landscape, and forests swayed in the gentle wind. CosmicAdventures, once silent and barren, now thrived. And at the center of it all, beneath the sands, the machine pulsed with life. Perfectly balanced and fully operational, he smiled, knowing that this was the triumph of human ingenuity. Alone, he had faced the desert, the machine, and the challenge of centuries, and he had succeeded. One human had awakened a sleeping giant, restored a planet, and demonstrated that courage, creativity, and determination were powers unmatched in the galaxy. The desert winds carried a gentle vibration, the hum of the machine, and the sound of life returning to the planet. Kieran realized that humans were not merely survivors, they were creators, innovators, and heroes capable of extraordinary feats. And CosmicAdventures, alive once more, would always carry the mark of one human who dared to touch what others had abandoned. The planet trembled not with fear, but with life. The sands shifted, the rivers flowed, and the forests grew. The machine, once silent for 117 years, now sang with energy, responding to the human mind that had awakened it. Kieran had proven that one human could achieve what entire civilizations had failed to do, and in that moment, CosmicAdventures was no longer a desert. It was a testament to courage, ingenuity, and the remarkable potential of humans. The story of one human mechanic would echo across the stars, a reminder that even in solitude, determination and creativity could awaken giants and reshape the destiny of a world. The desert of CosmicAdventures was changing. Small shifts in the sand, subtle vibrations underfoot, and a faint glow on the horizon told Kieran that the machine was alive in ways far beyond what he had imagined. Every subsystem he activated brought new responses from the planet itself. Rocks shifted, hidden water reservoirs shimmered, and the wind carried strange, musical pulses that seemed to echo the rhythm of the buried giant. Kieran stood at the base of the central control chamber, sweating beneath the sun, tools strapped to his belt, and a small datapad in hand. The first subsystem had been activated, but the heart of the machine still lay dormant. The pathways leading to deeper chambers were buried under centuries of sand and corrosion. Each step forward required patience, skill, and the kind of daring only a human could summon. He began by clearing access tunnels, moving enormous sections of sand with carefully improvised tools. Each scoop revealed parts of the machine's inner workings, interlocking gears, conduits glowing faintly, and panels engraved with glyphs that pulsed rhythmically. It was as if the machine were alive, guiding him to the areas that needed attention. Kieran paused to examine a complex array of energy nodes. Aligning them required precise timing. He adjusted one, tested another, and slowly the nodes began to hum in harmony. A faint vibration ran through the desert, stronger than before. Kieran smiled. Each correct adjustment seemed to ripple through the planet itself. The desert, long silent, was responding to human ingenuity, but the awakening had not gone unnoticed. Alien scavengers, drawn by the energy surges, were beginning to converge on the area. Kieran spotted faint heat signatures in the distance, moving across the dunes. They were fast, efficient, and dangerous, but none of them understood the machine as he did. None of them could think in the flexible, intuitive way a human mind could. Kieran had to work quickly. He activated a series of defensive mechanisms built into the machine, ancient systems that manipulated the environment. Sand dunes shifted, creating walls and barriers, misdirecting potential intruders. The aliens, unfamiliar with the terrain and the machine's subtle powers, faltered. It was a small advantage, but Kieran knew he could not rely on luck. The key was human creativity, not brute force. Hours turned into days. Kieran moved tirelessly, calibrating the energy flows, pairing worn-out conduits and synchronizing systems that had lain dormant for over a century. Each adjustment required careful thought. A single misalignment could overload the circuits or destabilize the planet's crust. But Kieran thrived under the challenge. Humans had always adapted, improvised, and solved problems that others could not. And now his ingenuity was the only thing keeping the machine in CosmicAdventures on the path to revival as he worked. The desert itself seemed to acknowledge his efforts. Sand dunes shifted subtly to reveal buried access ports. Small fissures emitted warm, life-giving air. Faint traces of water appeared in places long thought dry. Kieran realized that the machine was not merely mechanical, it was ecological. A planetary caretaker that responded to his human touch. Deep within the central chamber, Kieran discovered a series of control panels that had resisted all previous attempts. Each panel required a sequence of touches and adjustments, a pattern that no alien mind could have anticipated. Kieran's hands moved with precision, guided by intuition, experience, and creativity. Slowly, the panels began to light up, one by one. The machine was recognizing him as its operator, but progress came with a warning. A sudden tremor shook the ground, sand cascading down the dunes. Kieran realized that the machine's energy flows were unstable in certain sections. He adjusted conduits, balanced nodes, and rerouted energy, calming the system. The desert fell silent again, and a low hum of steady energy replaced the chaotic vibrations. Kieran breathed deeply, feeling a connection to the planet that went beyond logic. With each successful adjustment, Kieran uncovered hidden chambers that revealed more about the machine's original purpose. Massive energy cores pulsed with dormant power. Mechanical structures rose from beneath the sand, and holographic projections showed CosmicAdventures as it had once been, forests stretching across continents, rivers flowing with clear water, and cities built with elegance and precision. Kieran realized that the machine could restore not only the planet's physical form, but also its lost beauty. Time became a blur. Kieran worked through scorching days and freezing nights. Guided by the hum of the machine and the subtle responses of the desert, he became one with the rhythms of energy flows, adjusting, testing, and perfecting. The machine was teaching him, responding to his ingenuity, and acknowledging the human touch that no alien could replicate. Then came the first major surge. Energy pulsed through the central chamber, strong enough to shake the dunes. Kieran stabilized the system, rerouting power and adjusting nodes, feeling the full force of the machine's potential. The desert shifted dramatically. Dunes rose and fell. Hidden structures revealed themselves, and small pools of water appeared in long dry beds. The planet itself seemed to awaken, responding to the touch of one human who dared to act where others had failed. But the surge also drew attention. Alien scavengers approached more boldly, attempting to penetrate the shifting dunes and access the machine. Kieran knew he had to protect his discovery. Using the machine's environmental controls, he created barriers, misdirected sandpaths, and activated localized energy pulses that confused the intruders. The aliens were clever, but they lacked the patience, intuition, and creativity that Kieran possessed. As night fell, Kieran climbed a ridge to observe the desert. Lights glowed faintly across the awakened sections of the machine, and the sand shifted with a subtle, almost musical rhythm. The planet was responding to his work, acknowledging his skill. Kieran felt a deep sense of pride and purpose. He was no longer just surviving. He was shaping the destiny of an entire world. He returned to the central chamber. He determined to tackle the remaining subsystems. Each system was more complex than the last, requiring careful alignment and intuitive problem-solving. Kieran adjusted energy flows, repaired conduits, and synchronized rotating mechanisms, each step bringing him closer to full activation. The hum of the machine grew stronger, vibrating through the sands and into the sky above. Days merged into nights. Kieran slept only briefly, dreaming of glowing panels, flowing energy, and the history of CosmicAdventures. He awoke with renewed determination. Guided by intuition and the lessons the machine itself seemed to impart, the planet was alive, the machine was responding, and the alien scavengers had yet to breach the defenses. Finally, after weeks of relentless work, Kieran activated the final panel in the central chamber. Lights flared across the machine, conduits hummed in perfect harmony, and the desert vibrated with a steady pulse. The first true awakening of the machine was complete. The planet responded immediately. Dunes shifted to reveal hidden terraces. Water shimmered in long dry channels, and faint greenery began to emerge. CosmicAdventures was no longer a barren desert, it was alive. Breathing with energy and potential, Kieran stood on a ridge overlooking the transformed landscape. The desert winds carried a hum of life. The stars above reflected the glow of the awakened machine, and the planet itself seemed to pulse in acknowledgement. He had succeeded where countless alien civilizations had failed. One human, alone and determined, had awakened the giant beneath the sands and begun to restore an entire world. The challenge was far from over. The machine still held deeper secrets, and alien scavengers were surely preparing their next move. But Kieran knew the power of human ingenuity, courage, and persistence. No obstacle could match the combination of creativity and daring that had brought him this far. The desert stretched endlessly around him, but it was no longer empty. It was a living, breathing testament to the capabilities of one human who dared to touch what others had abandoned. Kieran smiled, ready for the next stage of awakening, knowing that the true power of the machine and the planet was yet to come. The hum of energy, the shifting sands, and the faint glimmer of water all spoke a single truth. One human could achieve what entire civilizations could not. And CosmicAdventures, alive and responding, awaited the next move of the mechanic who dared to awaken it.